Hi 56, it's Mr. K here, and welcome to week 4 writing. So for this week, we are writing another persuasive piece, and it's all about save our habitat. So today's session's all about organising our thoughts and ideas, and then creating a quick plan so that we can start our introduction tomorrow. So the first thing you need to do is look at the hook that we've put here, and it's simply a picture with some animals, and it looks like some heavy machinery. You need to study this picture, have a really good look at it, and then answer some of the questions below for us. So we will upload a copy of this to the class story. But again, if you just want to pause the video now and have a quick look at it before I go down to the questions, that's okay also. So today, before we actually create our planner, we want to organise some of our thoughts and just get thinking, do some brainstorming. So the first thing we need to look at is, what is a habitat? That's really important to understand for this particular writing piece, obviously. If you don't know, you can use a dictionary and go and look it up. You then need to look at what is happening in the picture and write down some powerful vocab about what we can see, what we can hear. How do you feel when you look at this picture? And possibly what you could smell. Do you think this is fair? Do you think it's fair that this heavy machinery is destroying these beautiful animals' environment? Next, which animals can you see? I can see at least 3 there. You may find 1 or 2 hidden animals. Next one is, which country do you think this picture is from? I think looking at the animals, that's a pretty obvious one. Do you think there are any important messages to take from this picture? If you were driving the digger, how would you feel? What would you do? And then we need to draw the rest of the scene. What other animals do you imagine are nearby? So that picture doesn't need to be extremely detailed. Put your best effort in, obviously, but remember, this is simply a plan. We're not creating an art piece. And then really, it's time to plan. So we obviously need to think about what writing strategies we could use in this piece, and then think about what big ideas we could link to, create a plan of words or short phrases for each big idea that we can use when writing our arguments. So what I'll do now is I'll take you through how to actually plan this piece. So the idea now is that you would answer these questions in your book and then create the plan like I'm going to show you how to do now. So for this week's persuasive writing piece, we're going to stick to 2 arguments just to ensure that we can complete the piece within a 1-week time frame. So you can see there that I'm obviously starting off with my title, which is Save Our Habitat. I would expect you to come up with a much more interesting title than that. Let's have a look now at the plan for our introduction. So we need to start off with an anecdote. So an anecdote is just that narrative thread that we include at the start of our introduction to really hook the reader and give them a visual image. So I'm going to talk about large machinery destroying animals' homes. That's how I'm going to start off my introduction. I'm then going to state my contention using some persuasive vocab. I'm going to say that I passionately and vehemently agree. I'm then going to briefly state what my 2 big ideas are. Number 1 being animal welfare, and number 2 being health and safety. You may come up with some other big ideas. You don't have to stick with the same big ideas that I'm going to incorporate into my piece. You may choose to do something completely different, which is fine. And the last thing I'm going to do there in my introduction is link back to my anecdote with a reword. So I'm going to use the word reimagine, and I'm now going to be talking about those animals living peacefully. So the opposite of what was happening with my original anecdote. So that's how I'm going to structure my introduction. We'll then look at argument 1, and the thing that you'll probably notice is that what we need to include for argument 1 and argument 2 is exactly the same. So sequencing vocab, big idea, we'll then expand on that big idea and talk about some of the arguments that relate to that, and then include some statistics. So you can see there in argument 1 and argument 2, exactly the same structure. You can always extend yourself, remember, by including something like a rebuttal, but that's not expected for this week's writing piece. If you want to include that and go above and beyond, absolutely fantastic. I would love to see that. So the sequencing vocab that I'm going to start off with my first argument is first and foremost. The big idea I relate to is animal welfare. The arguments that relate to animal welfare: causes animals to lose their food source, loss of habitat kills animals. I'm then going to use my statistic to support this. And I'm also going to say that animals have rights too, and we have no right to actually destroy their homes. What are my statistics? Well, the expert/organisation is going to be the World Wildlife Foundation, the WWF. Remember, it's not the World Wrestling Foundation, the WWF, the World Wildlife Foundation. And the stat is going to be that loss of habitat causes animals to become extinct. If we look to argument 2, I started with first and foremost. I could start with furthermore for my second argument, but I'll just start with secondly, just for the sake of it, just to give you a range of different options that you can use. The big idea for my second argument is going to be health and safety. What arguments relate to that? Well, less trees means less oxygen. That's going to be related to my statistic. And I'm also going to say that destroying plants that can be used as medicine can actually kill people. The expert is going to be the World Environmental Group, and the stat is going to be the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere will reduce by 25%, which is obviously a really, really bad thing. And then finally, the conclusion and coda. The sequencing vocab I'm going to start with is to reiterate. You might want to start with to restate. I'm then going to restate my contention using persuasive vocab. I'm then going to say that I firmly and strongly agree. And then I'll obviously say that we shouldn't be destroying animals' homes. I'm then going to briefly restate my two big ideas, which were animal welfare and health and safety, as we just discussed in argument 1 and argument 2. And then I'm going to finally link back to my original anecdote, which again will be about animals living freely and happily. And for a coda this week, I suggest that, or I recommend that you just do a quick Google search and find a famous quote about home, or just a lovely quote about home. You'll be able to do that pretty easily just through a Google search, and then possibly click on the image tab, and that will come up with a range of lovely quotes that you may choose to use this week. Don't forget as well, with the activity that you did previous to this, where you came up with some powerful strategies and some lovely vocab that you might want to include in this persuasive writing piece, please make sure that you remember to go back to that activity during the week and actually include some of that wonderful vocab that you came up with and brainstormed in the previous activity. So again, that's how I'd love you to structure your writing piece for this week. Again, argument 1 and argument 2 doesn't really change. For our conclusion, we're briefly just restating the arguments that we've already talked about here and the ideas that we've already talked about. So we don't need to include any new ideas in our conclusion there. And again, for the introduction, just make sure that you start off with an anecdote, state your contention, briefly state your two big ideas, and link back to your anecdote with a reword, and you should have a fantastic piece planned for this week. Remember, we are here to support you in any way, so if you've got any questions after watching this video, just message one of your teachers and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Hope you're going well. Good luck with the writing piece, and I'll see you again for tomorrow's video. Take care. Bye.